Welcome. I am here with Ken Williams to talk about the state of contemporary Heroscape play. Um, for those of you who have not met me before, my name is William Wellman. I am the new community coordinator for Heroscape over here. I do a lot with Heroscape's creative side and also with organized play. Ken, for those of you who don't already know you in the community, who are you and how long have you been playing Heroscape?
Well, good morning, William. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ken. I go by Matthias Maccabeus on the interwebs, I guess. And I have been playing Heroscape since about 2006. I ended up going to Gen Con in 2009, and I had a blast there. I met Mark Pruitt, Reichian. He was running the tournament scene there, and he was doing a phenomenal job. And then in 2012, he actually handed the reins over to me to run the Gen Con events Gen Con Heroscape events at Gen Con. And then in 2021, Mike started up ScapeCon. And then in 2023, I was able to join him, and I joined the board over there. And I have a pleasure working with those guys with ScapeCon stuff. And I'm kind of in charge of the draft pools I guess Renegade would call them judges, but we call them like TOs or tournament directors over there.
Right.
And then 2025, Renegade said, "Hey, can you come be judge at Gen Con?" And I said, "Sure." DEFCON coming up, I'll be the judge there. And then I'm on the official, unofficial rules team with like Mike and Don and Adam. And then I also have a podcast that I do with Heroscape called Jandar's Dispatch with Gordon Berg.
We have seen in contemporary Heroscape, like I've managed to get to play along as the kind of contemporary releases have rolled out, and it's been very interesting going from this place of only having the master set and the battle box, and starting with tournament games with just that assortment, and then slowly getting the rest of the kind of lineup that we currently have. But something that we've seen for the past, basically the first year of Heroscape's release, was that there were only unique figures. And for the audience, a unique figure is one that you can only have one of in your army, which means that losing them is pretty valuable. Whereas common squads, which came out in a first wave with the Revenant Acolytes, the Tanuki Tricksters, and the Molten Crustaceans, also the Grave Grim, introduced common figures to the contemporary meta. And my question for you, Ken, would be, that was the first wave of commons. We then saw the second wave of common releases come out. And that included the Gelrai Vanguards and the Krakenling that goes with them, the Scions of Icaria, and the Great Bow Archers. How do you feel those releases changed the contemporary meta once they released? And like, is there anything weird or interesting that we've seen over the tables since they've been out?
Well, I think they definitely changed things. I know we already had previous commons, but like the Revenant Acolytes don't really count because they're more of a support unit, right? Nobody's
Right.
coming to the bat. Nobody's coming with 7 squads of Revenant Acolytes and winning a tournament, right? And then the Tanukis were only a 2-man squad, so it's like the number of activations was only 2 attacks per turn, and usually that's the power of common squads, is all the activations. And then the crabs are in this weird spot where, like, a 3/3 5-move 3-person squad is just not typically going to win a tournament for you. And what they do, even though I know it's controversial, whatever, but what they do, you can't always get them to do what you want them to do where you want them to do it, right? But the Tanukis worked well with Queen. Scavareth is, he eats up so many points with the Iron Lisha, it's harder to get common squads in there. So I think definitely these common squads are making more of a splash. Get it, gallery. Anyway,
Very nice.
Thank you. Are making more of a splash, especially with the introduction of a 4-man bonding squad, right? The fact that you get 4 attacks per turn with the Gelrai, and they have free development, is fantastic. So I think obviously they're doing really well. The Great Bows do a nice job of complementing other units like Queen Maladrex or even like the Oathbound. They're still hampered a little bit by only 2 activations or 2 attacks per turn. Now they're 2 good attacks, especially if you can spread them out and get a couple up front, a couple in the back, so you can decide who's getting the attack of 5 with the range of 7.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings me into my next question. The fear that I kind of had, especially before we knew what the shape of commons would look like in Age of Annihilation, was that like we would get this solid year of unique releases, and then a bunch of them would just like become kind of outmoded as commons came in with better action economy and more activations and more redundancy. So do you think that uniques still like play an important role in the meta? Can they like hold a candle to essentially mass Galrai or Great Bow builds?
Queen Maledicts is really good, and she's always going to be really good. But like her infestation thing really falls to the wayside when it's a bunch of commons. So I think she's always going to have be around, like in the shadows here and there. She's still going to win things here and there. But I think other than that, like the Gelrai right now are really what's I think what's at the top of the meta. So I mean, the short answer is mostly no. The uniques aren't going to stand up, but I think Queen Maledicts is an exception to that rule. And I still think like figure limits and hex limits and whatnot, like you still have uses for like the exiles are still always going to be around, I think, and then like the oathbound are still going to be around.
My follow up question here would be, you are kind of like well practiced in taking something that is an uphill battle and then like developing a strategy to make it work. What is the if you have to play against an army that is just 24 spaces of Gelrai and you can't play mass Gelrai against them, what are you picking here in Contemporary to try and like take them on?
Well, in all honesty, it might be the crabs because you want to try and match body for body. And then, and the biggest thing I think with the Gelrai right now is you have to fight them on common ground or even ground. Uh, I think they're fascinating in terms of they're the first unit that we've had in a while that's like, oh, you got to play against these guys pretty differently, right? You can't. We always want height advantage in Heroscape. We've been taught that for years. Height advantage is extra dice. That's good, but +1 attack is not better than +2 defense as a general rule.
Right.
And then the way modern maps are, you really want to try and give those fights on even ground. And the other thing is like you have to be careful of. Sometimes you're trying to keep even ground, but then there's height next to you. So if a Galrai survives, he's going to take height on you. So it's really about like picking where you want to do the engagements because they're going to be knocking on your door regardless. So I do think crabs with a range component of some sort. I just don't think great bows have enough activations because if I'm only even if I'm getting 2 kills a turn with the great bows, they're just keep coming at 4 activation. So I think crabs might be the best. Especially you can make. I mean, if you get some lucky lava drops, you can make some things more difficult for them to advance. I mean, Queen's always good too with 7 activations per turn. If you can keep those festering honor guard. But like I said, you're so used to giving height in the Gallery. Like, sure, take height. That's okay with me.
I am happy to see at least one massed army that all of the like area of effects special attacks in Age of Annihilation can finally go towards. Because for the longest time, like Zenithrax, Killian Vane, a few others in the mix have these abilities that really punish grouping up. But in like small figure count, high point games where it's mostly unique heroes, it doesn't happen too often. If you get lucky, you could wipe out quite a few fish as long as you're, not rolling into their 4 defense while on low ground. Along with the kind of wave of commons that we got, we also got a few promotional figures, kind of standalone uniques in this last wave. Rayland 4.0 finally sort of freed of her time underground in Utgar's camp. And then also the Deflectatron kind of flying in from space. What do you think of these two? And have you seen any like sort of compelling uses for them in contemporary army building right now?
I think Raylan is just solid in general. We've talked about this before on like Jandar's Dispatch. The nice thing she does with the Tanukis is kind of gives them a pseudo third activation with her ability to jump in there and do some damage, or even if they kick away from her with Nagawaza, they're able to roll for a leaving engagement. And she's a problem. So like even against Mass Gelrai, if she jumps in and starts dealing damage, they have to concentrate on her. Otherwise, if they keep attacking somebody else, she's just going to be bouncing around all over the place. And with her 6 life and 3 defense, that's usually going to absorb a good number of attacks before she's taken out. Like I think she's good in a Gelrai build too as well. Like as long as you have the points and figure limits or whatever you're working with, I think she's got a lot of good places that she can do. Like against Queen Mao, she can actually activate twice, once for the Festering Honor Guard and once on Queen Mao's turn. The Deflectatron is interesting. I think, to be honest, I think he's a budget Glenerva in some aspects. Like, he gives you a similar vibe that Glenerva does, where people can't be targeted. So if you've got a melee army that's advancing and you've got some key figures you want to protect, he can do that. The other thing he can do is sometimes he can just drop on height and deny that from your opponent. I mean, and right now he's a filler at 25 points as well.
Which, although it can be tempting to look at that and then like want to grab 4 of them immediately, the once per round deployment does mean that you need to take it a little bit slower.
Well, the other thing I remember is, because I like to play like all chain fighters. Sometimes you can't actually do all Deflectatrons because you have to have somebody on the field to drop next to or within 3 spaces of. So technically you could do that, but you just would go home because you're not playing anymore.
Speaking of testing Storm Shadow, as we sit here, next month we are expecting the kind of arrival of the G.I. Joe Battle for the Rift battle box, and then also a couple of different army expansions. What pieces in the G.I. Joe sets are you looking forward to? And do you think there are any kind of big game changers for the contemporary meta within those sets?
Yeah, I mean, I'm old school melee player, so bonding warlords. So Serpentor and Cobra Commander with the Romans. Hey, I'm in. I have been playing with green shirts, Duke and Scarlet, and then the ninjas with the Tanuki and Jinx and Kamakura with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. It's been a lot of fun. Like, we've been able to proxy those and be able to use those abilities. It's been a lot of fun. But I think Cobra Troopers are going to float to the top of the meta when they come out. I think for 500 points, you can get 4 Troopers, Destro, the Twins, and Kita. And I think that's going to be really hard, really tough nut to crack for a while, because with Destro, that's 6 attacks per turn and 6 ranged attacks. The good news is the Troopers only have 2 defense, so if you can attack them, they're probably not going to stick around. Because think about Blastatrons. Blastatrons at 2 defense don't stick around very often, especially if there's no old school Raylan. But I think they're going to float to the top of the meta coming up for a minute until the next wave comes out.
Do you think it's going to be so severe that you need to pack Glenerva every time to sort of protect yourself? What do you think the best play is if you find yourself facing off against Cobra Troopers?
Currently, right now, in the I guess end of next month, it's gonna be difficult. I think, I mean, Galray are still mass commons, and there's still a lot of them coming. And if you can, I hate to say it's so untypical to say or atypical. If you get on low ground,
Right.
that extra defense will help quite a bit. And one of the things I think Renegade's been doing that's been super interesting to me, since I'm an old school melee player, is development is such a big deal, especially with melee. And Renegade's been really intentional about making ways to do that. And like with the Gelrice free move, and then we'll talk about like the bugs later, and the Tanuki Aruki with that free development. I think that's going to help against the Troopers. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I think Raylan helps as well, because you can get Raylan in there, take out a Trooper or 2. Maybe she even gets a Whirlwind, because they're going to be bunched up if you can time your order markers right. I mean, once again, they only have 2 defense, because they're going to try and hug around those Cobra heroes, and with the Twins making Kita unique. I think one of the best ways to combat that, actually, in all honesty, is when you're setting point limits for formats, just keep the Cobra Troopers in mind. I think Galray always have a chance, and then, I mean, once again, if the Queen can get there with 7 attacks, she can take a big chunk out of the. Maybe Kelda Glyph is on the battle. Not Kelda, Valda is on the battlefield. They're able to get the move +2. So, and then obviously the initiative Glyph are also going to come into play in that matchup, because if melee can crash into range on their terms, if they say at end of order marker 3 and beginning of order marker 1, and you can take out 3 to 8 troopers, I think then they're kind of backing up, and they've got to make some different decisions.
Looking a little further on, as we kind of anticipate the release of G.I. Joe coming in March, in April we get a few mainline common squads, kind of stocking up the mainline Heroscape armies again. And we see the Elites of Ular coming out. We have Rannoch Vipers, and then the bundle of Chain Gruts and the Ramasaur Rider. Um, what do you think is going to happen with these? What's the best way to like use these in an army? And yeah, I think for a lot of new players, they're definitely looking at the arrival of more commons as like a way for more sort of diverse armies to start hitting the winning tables, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited for this wave. I think it's got a lot of good armies coming out and a lot of melee bonding. You know how much I love that. So, but I think like 5 squads of Chain Gruts, Decker, and Tuck Harrigan is going to be a really solid army that can give the troopers a run for their money. You know, Raniks are super interesting because uh, it's like, are they a good support figure? So like, do you do Queen Mal and a bunch of Raniks, or do you just go full Raniks and add like Halucia and Kita to round them out? And I think they can go either way. Like 7 squads of Raniks, Halucia, and Kita seems pretty strong. But I still think like Decker and Tuck are going to be fantastic with them. I think Kane's going to do well. Even the Ramsar rider for 35 points, that's pretty good. It's pretty good because he's got 7 move, and then the Chain Gruts can give him disengage. So the elites are going to do better in like a format for Gen Con last year, where it's like a smaller figure limit. Like
Right.
3 squads of elites, Ziamara and Milky is actually a really good army at 500 points, but it's not going to win against like Chain Gruts times 5 Decker and Tuck, I don't think. Could surprise me. I mean, it depends how hot that amulet roll is, but as a general rule, in a smaller figure limit, I think it's going to do really well because it's a tough nut to crack. It really is.
Elites of Ular, in my experience, you're playing a kind of a smaller army with fewer figures in it compared to some of the just mass common armies. And it really relies on making the most of like both Mielke and Ziamara's abilities in order to like keep that entire crew alive. And so like if you manage to keep the like cycle turning, I've seen that engine like tear through other armies where I just could not get a hit in against these guys that they wouldn't like heal back. But on the flip side, I've had games where I lost a bunch of figures early, I overextended, people were out of the range of these healing abilities, or it just rolled bad. And then
Right.
like my army kind of collapsed to those mass commons.
Yeah.
So definitely there's a lot of like tricky positioning to think about if you're playing elites and their heroes compared to some of the just rush in and kill type armies.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a finesse army than say like, oh, I'm just gonna put all 4 of my order markers in the Gellerai and see what happens.
It is a super packed year for Heroscape because just after G.I. Joe in March and Elites, Ranox, Chain Gruts in April, we get another huge wave of common stuff in May. We have the Necrotech Reavers, we have the Revenants and the Nukkalavi, and then the Skordire Infantry and their 3 heroes, the Spitting Hive Soldier, the Lurking Hive Soldier, and the Bursting Hive Soldier. Let's start with the Necrotech Reavers. These guys are really interesting compared to the way that like squads and heroes typically work. Um, they also have kind of a complicated relationship with the other unique Isonex that we have already on the table. How do you think these guys will kind of fit into the scene when they land? And do you plan to play any armies with these?
Yeah, I mean, I like these guys. These guys are very enjoyable. Melee bonding is where it's at. And what I really like is the scavenge parts, right? Yeah, I just call it upgradability. But when they're upgrading, you can kind of pick and choose what you need and when you need it and where you need it at, right? So if you've got a bunch of guys coming at you and you just need a cyberclaw to hold them down for a minute until you catch up, great. That guy becomes your cyberclaw. Assuming you have one that's been destroyed, right? So I really like the deeper thought that you have to put into like which ones to bring back. I guess obviously like if you only have one sword guy died and that's it, you bring him back, right? But
Right.
I do like that. I mean, I'm a big Hellforge is probably my favorite thing to come out so far. So the fact that I can still throw the Hellforge into these guys, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, see that, see that you're all grouped up there. Here comes my Hellforge that I've just been, he's just been kind of hanging out in the back because it's hard to do it when you like we all get one activation plus the Hellforge, or I could get 4. But sometimes the Hellforge, he just wants to come in there and kill things. They're going to vie for this top position, I think, once they all come out. Like they all have, they all have a chance. I think they really do.
For the Revenants of Revna and the Nukkalavi, what's your take on these guys?
The 6 move with stealth flying is fantastic, right? And the ability to pick and choose when you need to take that wound to get that extra attack dice. I mean, you're looking at extra attack dice across the board, so which is fantastic, right? And then like the Nekalavi gets powered up when he has wounds on him, and then like they also bomb Macerex and Killcrack, so we finally have a combo for Macerex to die and go on Killcracks, right?
Oh,
Um,
the undead Revna bonding has been waiting so long.
right. I mean, then you even have like with Grave Grim, like with Grave Grim, and then you put a SWAT of Revenant or Acolytes in there, and then like
Right.
you know, so I mean, there's lots of cool things here. But I actually liked them against the troopers in all honesty because Nekalavi can just run up there with the 7 move and just take out 3 of them with his blast, you know, and then the Revenants once I mean if they can jump in there on an initiative switch with their 6 move, they kind of remind me a little bit of like Armok Vipers just because they're so fast and they have a similar stat line when they power up, even though they have stealth flying and stuff. And I think sometimes speed's an underrated thing in Heroscape. People, you know, like 4 move knights are great, but not at 4 move, you know. But you see, you know, 6 move stealth flying is pretty good, and we, you know, the Phantom Knights have taught us that for a long time. So
Well, and for the again, kind of for the audience that hasn't like encountered a common squad with stealth flying before, there are a couple in the prior era of Heroscape, but one of the kind of like tricky things these guys can do is with stealth flying, you always have the ability, if there's high ground nearby, to just leave and then land on that height. So it might allow you to claim height in some places that you usually couldn't. What is your take on the Squardire infantry? Because similar to the Reavers, this is a common squad with also 3 heroes that go with it. The Spitting Hive Soldier, the Bursting Hive Soldier, and the Lurking Hive Soldier. And on top of that, the infantry have some ties back to your like unique big bug heroes that we've seen, with Maladrix, the Oathbound, and Thyraxis. What's your first impression on these?
oh, they're great. I mean, the biggest thing they're going to get hurt by is figure limits, right? They want the more figure limits, the better for them because they're so cheap. And once again, I like that the free movement they have. If something dies, they can bring up another guy. And I really so I think that's fantastic. Like, and the fact that they get attacked with 2 heroes and one of them can lower defense, like I, you know, on a certain figure, like if I need Destro dead, I can attack with him first, and then I can concentrate on Destro and try and take him out, right, to kind of weaken the Cobra Troopers or whatever. So yeah, I like I said, I like all these bonding units coming out. I think they're all going to do good. I think maybe Chain Grets are going to be a little bit better than the rest, but I'm also a little bit biased when it comes to orcs. So but I think they're all going to be kind of fighting for that top spot, including the troopers. Like I think it's going to be a bag of like 5 or 6, depending on like I think point totals and figure limits are going to going to be a big reason. Oh, well, I should pick this one over this one or whatnot.
Definitely the hope at the end of the season is that we are seeing partially due to diverse formats, partially due to like different things being viable in different situations, but definitely would love to see like 4 or 5 different army builds competing for that spot rather than like one universal
Absolutely,
common
and
squad.
I think you're going to have that after all this stuff comes out.
Last thing that comes out in May also are unique, but they are also kind of an interesting bag of tricks in their own way with Thorman and then also the Kraken. Thorman having the ability to kind of like grab other unique heroes for a sort of bespoke army, and then the Kraken to replace bonding turns in other armies. How do you think these two are going to be received when they come out? And is there anything concerning that you can foresee in like the way these two interact with the rest of the game?
I think this is very interesting. I've been racking my brain a little bit about what I think the best Thorman army, and I think it involves maybe a couple of the bugs or like the Ghoul Grip and the Burster from the bugs. Just
Interesting.
yeah, because they're cheap, right? And they can also lock some stuff down while you're running around trying to get set up. I'm not exactly sure. I kind of like Scarlet with him as well, especially on his 3rd turn. She attacks something that's obviously got an order marker or 2 on that's been revealed. So they've got less defense. And then she can attack twice actually with her ability. I still think they're going to struggle in the mass commons, but once again, like Gen Con last year, 425-14, I think they got a decent, they would have a shot in a smaller figure limit like that. Or like the Highlander event that Renegade's been running at various cons, I think they would do well. Um, So I think it's going to be interesting to see what people come up with and like where they rack their brains. Right now, I kind of like the Cyberclaw or Ghoul Grip, the Burster, and then Scarlet. It's kind of the three I like with Thorman. I don't know exactly what else to put with him, or like if it's automatically the Kraken, or maybe the new Savaris coming out like for the ranged attacks. Like I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the community comes up with Thorman and the Kraken. To be honest, like I think it's going to be super interesting. I think the Kraken's got a lot of interesting plays with like Holochot and the various other Dryans out there. So we'll see.
Absolutely. And the brutal thing about that for ye army builders is that Halushot takes two bonding turns with various small, medium, or large beasts, one of which the Kraken can steal, and then you
Correct.
still get a different turn with another
Correct.
creature. Um,
So you
so
could
yeah,
have and if the Kraken has all five is out with all five of them, you got Hollow Shot attacking twice, the Kraken 5 times, and you got like Anshu attacking twice, right?
yep.
So you're like, is this a common squad? How many attacks is this? Like, so
I am so curious to see how much of this we end up seeing at our tables for Adepticon Gen Con this year.
yes,
Um, my last question would be, obviously this is a ton of new releases coming out just over the first half of this year. It's a lot for tournament organizers to keep up with, especially those that are kind of new to running events. Do you have any tips for event organizers to kind of keep creating events that are fair and fun, like, as we keep seeing a bunch of new releases?
yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the biggest thing is to listen to your community, and the other thing to think about is like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've been running events for 20 years. Like, go ask somebody that's been doing it for a while, or like I think I was talking to Chris Perkins the other day, and he said 1,000 tournaments have run on Heroscape.org. So you got a little bit of data to go through, right? To see like, oh, that looks cool, or oh, I could see that, or whatever. But I think like just pay attention to your community, and like if you have a point limit in mind, build a couple armies you think that are really good at that point limit, and like think if and see if you, oh yeah, that's cool, or like I don't, that doesn't, I don't want that. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, because here's the deal. The only reason I'm still playing, well, there's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons I'm still playing Heroscape for 20 years is like Heroscapers are just good people. They really are. But yeah, just ask. If you have a question, ask. Look, they're gonna be there to assist you. And then like the very last thing I would say about like people trying to get involved with organized play and stuff is play faster.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion, Ken. It's great to hear from you, and so your expertise on all these opinions is super valuable. I can't wait to see you at some game tables here.
I appreciate it. Thank you, William.